Boa tarde a todos, bem-vindos. Vai mais um workshop do projeto de rede de pares. Hoje temos o privilégio e a honra de ter connosco a Nichole Mosty. Já tivemos uma Nicole Allen, agora temos Nichole Mosty. E que vem de uma das nossas parceiras deste consórcio do projeto. A Nichole é chairwoman de uma organização denominada WOMEN, que é a Women of Multicultural Ethnicity Network, que está na Islândia, que curiosamente é também um dos países doadores do EA Grants, que é a entidade que está a apoiar este projeto. E o objetivo da WOMEN, da organização Women, não é Women, mas Women, é para unir, expressar e ir ao encontro dos interesses e dos temas das mulheres de origem estrangeira que estão a viver neste momento na Islândia, para promover questões ligadas à igualdade e em todas as áreas da sociedade. É uma organização ativista, procura uma chamada ou ser orientada para a ação, com foco na diversidade cultural e na competência cultural, na promoção da inclusão e do empowerment. E a ideia de inclusão é aqui entendida como um compromisso das políticas, procedimentos e práticas para alterar as dinâmicas e ultrapassar os enviesamentos e a ignorância que muitas vezes exclui as mulheres e os grupos de mulheres migrantes do seu lugar justo nas comunidades. Por isso, é com muita honra que também aqui e agradecemos, we thank you very much for your presence, e damos também as boas-vindas a todos os nossos participantes. Quem queira também ouvir esta preleção em português poderá fazê-lo apenas aqui no vosso Zoom. Em baixo têm uma série de comandos, um diz inglês, se clicarem a outra opção é português e ouvirão com tradução simultânea esta nossa sessão de hoje. Bem-vindos novamente a todos e uma boa sessão. Fiquem bem, até já. Nichole, you have the floor.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be a part of this network and to take part in this program. I have loved every minute of it and the learning opportunities, and I'm very thankful to be with you here today to share with you a little bit of what we're doing here in Iceland. And excuse me with the lighting here, we seem to be getting shade. Share with what we're doing here in Iceland, what we're doing at our organization, and talk a little bit about cultural competency and working with women and victims of multi-ethnic backgrounds, and understanding that needs go further than just dealing with violence. The discrimination and degradation and those certain things that create a vulnerability are connected to a lot of things that are societal. So I've got a little presentation here that I'm just going to get rolling. I'm going to trust that Maria said a little bit about me, so hopefully I don't have to say too much about me and more about what we do. So this is our organization. And we're going to talk today about how migrant women are welcomed in Iceland, the importance of diversity, cultural competence, inclusiveness, and empowerment. We feel that these threads are equally important, and without one of them, we can't have any of them. This is our one of our lovely inclusions here. Here we are with the president of Iceland and his wife, who is
Nichole,
a woman of foreign
excuse
origin.
me, but your presentation is not on yet.
Oh. Okay, oops, excuse me. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's see, let's try this again. Here we go. Do you see my screen? Am I there? There we go. Okay, excuse me, I didn't, I went into the old one that I just opened up for a test. But you know, you guys, you all know, everyone watching, it's not a good presentation unless there's some technical difficulty. So this is going to be a whopper. Anyway, so this is our group, what I was saying here. So here we are with the president of Iceland and his wife, who is also a woman of foreign origin. We were invited to the president's home for tea after sort of closing out of one of our empowerment projects. And this is a very wonderful day. And it just shows a little bit about us and our organization. We are called Women in Iceland, Women of Multicultural Ethnicity Network. In Icelandic, we say Samtök kvenna af erlendum uppruna á Íslandi. Our association was founded on October 24th, 2003, which is a very important day. This is the day which was called the Women's Walkout. It's the day that women in Iceland in 1975 stood up and said, no more. We've had it. And in 2003, women of foreign origin came together and said, we're founding an organization where we say this is no more. We take a little power over our situations. Our aim at Women in Iceland is to unite, to express and address the interests and issues of women of foreign origin living in Iceland. Because while we're all women and we have gender-specific issues, equality, and when it comes to gender-based violence, we stand up together. But it is very important that we address the issues that are specifically, that create us, I lost my English for a moment, vulnerabilities and things that need to be addressed regarding integration and how we empower women of foreign origin. Our intent is to bring about equality for them, or the women that we work with, as women and as foreigners in all areas of society through activism and empowerment projects, like the one we're involved in here with our lovely collaborators from Portugal. Here's just latest statistics. Iceland, so you know, is a very small country. Not necessarily small in size, but in population. We're only about 380,000 people. And I just wanted to pull this from the statistics to give you a little bit of a perspective. Non-foreign backgrounds are about 137,000. And then they have these distinctions about our ethnicity. It's multiculturalism in Iceland is quite a new phenomenon in relations to, you know, the continent of Europe and the migration of people. In Iceland, we've been quite isolated. And until the year 1999, when we entered the Schengen region, or the EFTA contract, and became an European economic community, then there started to be a big influx. Largest amount of immigrants or background would be Polish and different other Eastern Europeans. And then we have different Asian backgrounds. And then we have migrants from now more from the Middle East and from North and South America. But you see, born in Iceland, one parent being abroad, my daughter would be classified under here when she hits 18 with 6,700 second generation immigrants, born to two parents of foreign origin, people who are born abroad with an Icelandic background, but they do have a different citizenship. And then like myself, born abroad. So that's sort of how it looks regarding migration in Iceland. About 18% of females in Iceland are of foreign origin. Women of foreign origin living in Iceland, there's a very diverse backgrounds, as I just mentioned, regarding nationalities, educational backgrounds. You can't just lump immigrant women into one package, and you must know that if you're working with them, you have to be open and put culturally sensitive glasses on it and realize, though there's a nationality or there's an ethnicity, that there are things that also create this diversity that are related to our education, our linguistic backgrounds. I mean, you could be from Brazil, but speak Portuguese, therefore linking you a little bit more to Ana Maria than my friend Ana Maria from Spain. Oops, I went ahead through here. I was just going to move something. Religion and then culture. And culture is something you need to think about. Just you probably know from North and South Portugal, there is a difference. And this is something that we take great respect and understanding. The most populous nationality, Polish and other EEA or EFTA nations. Many women begin a career path. This is just a little bit background about what we experience here in an area other than where their education or their work experience was before migration. For example, tourism, as caregivers, cleaning, in the, I can't see my own slides here. In the food service industries, food and hotel industries, working in kitchens and whatnot. Many women, I really don't like to use this word because I don't know how empowering I feel about it, but re-educate, or they take a new educational path through university or other on-the-job training processes once they get here in order to empower and move up in the job market. I did this myself because a lot of women experience when they come here that as I mentioned, their education and their backgrounds, they're not acknowledged, and therefore making it difficult to move forward. Integration is not formally supported. There are no formal state-supported language courses. People can apply for grants because in Iceland, we speak Icelandic, which is a language that's native to a nation that has 360 to 80,000 people. So you have to learn it to get ahead. But the country, as in other Scandinavian nations, does not offer courses. You can take courses through work, or you can get a grant through your unions to take courses, but it is required of you to get ahead. There are no formal programs for skills assessments in order to help you find your placing in the work market. Nothing that's standardized as you would see in places like Germany. I know that they've been working really hard at that, and I don't know how it is in Portugal, but we don't have that. And as I had mentioned, it's difficult for women to get their qualifications declared. And we at Women experience this at our organization as something that creates a certain vulnerability with women. They get in situations where they feel as if their power is devalued, or they are not empowered. Women seeking refuge or asylum in Iceland, they face many challenges due to restrictions and social isolation. Support networks, they vary with women who move here, and COVID unemployment levels are very high right now. And these are all factors that create vulnerabilities that we try to work against. I'd like to speak a little bit about MeToo. And as you know, there was a movement, a flood. And in Iceland, it was quite interesting because it started in the winter of 2017, November. And it carried over after the beginning of the year. And we saw lots of different people, they stepped forward in according to their job classifications. First, it was women in politics, and then sort of, one after the other, there came teachers, and from the theaters and theatrical arts groups, media, lawyers, you understand, it probably occurred similarly in Portugal. But one thing that we noticed specifically, we did not see the voices of women for a foreign origin within these groups, even though we knew they were out there. They were working in these sectors. They had stories to tell. They weren't sharing them. We weren't seeing them. So at the time, I was not involved in women in this organization. I reached out to them and I said, hey, what are you guys doing? And the answer was, well, not really anything. So I called out a few friends and said, let's start this. And what happened is we were the last group of women to step forward. We worked together in the group, and we created a Facebook, a private page, where we started sharing our stories. And women of foreign origin, they had some strict standards. They did not want Icelandic women to participate. or to have access to the group or what we were sharing, because they felt isolated, abandoned, as if their power wasn't, and if there was no understanding for what that they were going through. And so we worked independently. All of the testimonials, the stories that went forward, we went from 34 on a Thursday evening to over 800 3 weeks later, of women, specifically of foreign origin, who were sharing stories of violence, of discrimination, of degradation, of harassment, of isolation, or stories. There were stories of people, of women who were basically human trafficked through work, or held sort of captive in violent and degradative relationships out in the sticks here in Iceland. All of our testimonies were anonymous because we decided we did not want to put a face to it or sensationalize. We wanted what we were saying to be a call for action and a call for acknowledgement. MeToo for Women of Origin, it painted a picture of exclusion, isolation, degradation, systemic abuse by not only perpetrator, but by society, and the very systems that were designed to protect and support us as our protectors, all of these things. Women were often kept in violent situations due to financial, familial, cultural, societal, or legal reasons, as in many cases, women's own immigration status was tied to the very abuser that they were living with. Language discrimination played a very big role in the lack of empowerment, the lack of access to support and help. Discussions surrounding our stories were based on mutual understanding, though some of us didn't experience situations that were as violent. We understood, and many of us knew. We knew, and even times heartbreaking stories, we understood that this woman was maybe someone we knew personally, even though she didn't put her name on it. The other thing that happened was, through this mutual understanding, there was also a sense of compassion and community-based empowerment. We found solidarity. Some of these women, I'd never heard of them before, but today we speak regularly and we understand each other. It was a wonderful moment where we stood up and took our space. We've been working hard ever since to work on community-based empowerment and ways to combat violence, or at least to support women in finding the support and their voices, and hopefully in working with the system in understanding the need for change. Just this past winter, we wanted to take the pulse. We wanted to see how things were. We knew COVID had hit hard, as unemployment was soaring amongst women, or foreigners in general, but in our instance, women of foreign origin. We had heard that abuse was up, that people were reporting a lot more abuse, but our links to women, our links of communication, they weren't telling us anything. People weren't looking to us. That same movement and compassion that we felt through our MeToo movement, we weren't feeling that amongst our ladies, as I usually say, hey ladies, but we weren't feeling that. So we said, we really want to see what's going on, and we want to see what we can do that genuinely meets the needs of our women. So like I said, it's been 2 years since MeToo. Too few initiatives, in our opinion, were centered, and when I talk about initiatives, I don't mean what we were doing, I mean what society was doing, that were centered around the manifesto that we sent out about what needed to change and improving specific situations for immigrant women. Now living in COVID times, that created more isolation, more financial and stress, and more opportunity for vulnerability and violence. Statistics, I had said that unemployment high. The survey was available for 3 weeks in 5 languages, and we had 605 people answer our survey, which in Iceland, that's a really good number for people of foreign origin. It was only offered online. I'd like to mention that. So now I'm just going to throw out some of the things that came up in our survey, and then I'll tell you a little bit about what we've been doing. So what came up is we decided to look a little bit of the background of our women, and you can see we have a very well-educated populace of women of foreign origin here. People had completed primary school, high school, master's degrees. We've got some PhDs. We've got a lot of university level courses that had been begun, or trade school. They're in the majority. When you look at the ethnicity, you can see on the ring over here on the right hand corner, we have a very diverse population of people, which says we need to be very sensitive about how we approach what we do, and that we're sensitive and understanding of this diversity. And we really wanted to look at it and see if what came up on the needs side of thing was ever reflected a little bit more in any ethnicity than another. Marital status. Also, there was no one answer about how women were or what situations they were living in. The status report, so I'm just throwing out here some things that we think that we really need to, when you're working with community-based peer support, you really need to understand these things. The unemployment levels told us that amongst our respondents, the majority of them were employed. And when we looked at what they were suffering with the other side of their employment, we found, that there were still extreme monetary stress factors, and the sense of security, 8 feeling secure here and 1 feeling insecure. So if we took 1 to 4 and measured it against 5 and up, that's a pretty high amount of people who were feeling not very secure in their place in Iceland, regarding the different issues that they were facing, regarding employment or safety or well-being. Support network. This was something that we find to be really important in the work that we do and in relation to this project that we're in. Immediate family seemed to be the highest source of support for people. When we described immediate family, that meant husband and children. We were not speaking. With the next extended family, that was, our parents, cousins, sisters, that next link out, or our in-laws, because, we're married and things like that. People didn't feel very supported by their extended family. The next thing that rung true was friends also of foreign origin. And we'd like to consider ourselves here, even though we are an NGO or a community-based thing, that we are friends and we are of foreign origin, and we score really high here regarding support. Friends of Icelandic origin, not so high. Co-workers, which could be of any ethnicity. Sometimes we look to a co-worker for support. And then when it got down to the parts of our society where people really need to look for that genuine support that's provided by our protectors. NGOs outside of us, not too high. Social workers, very low. Medical professionals, they didn't feel they were getting much support there. Religious communities, and then other people were allowed to give answers, and sometimes those answers mirrored right back up into immediate family or friends also of foreign origin. So we see that there's a need for support and community-based empowerment. Here, this is a look at stress and empowerment. On your left-hand side, you see the different things that people were experiencing as stress factors. Number 1, housing, rent, home loan, something having to do with that. The second thing had to do with medical or healthcare expenses, which really troubles me because of the fact that here we have universal healthcare. And it's, it's not the best, but we're very well provided for in relation to other countries. So the fact that people were experiencing difficulties with that, it really tells us that we're not meeting the needs of this group from a support perspective. And then, things like transportation, leisure, entertainment, food, child-based things, clothing. These are all, basic needs that people shouldn't have to struggle with, but they create stress. And when you're in an abusive situation, you can't be dealing with these kind of things. They don't empower you. Here to the right-hand side, we asked specifically what types of educational courses or informational courses we could provide you with that might provide you with empowerment and support, or what type of support or empowerment groups you wanted. And we saw the highest factor was Icelandic learning. People really wanted to learn the language. And then what really pulled us into action were here in the middle, support with depression, anxiety, social isolation, positive psychology, and or here we had things like yoga, meditation, goal setting, and self-image courses. How, I see myself better, I feel empowered, and I can take an active part. And at the top, then we were looking sort of at the different systems and where we could find information that would help women to feel empowered and strong in their own actions. And that really surprised us, labor market issues. They really wanted to know more about that. Tax and Social Security, legal rights, and different things like this. Just how do I? Self-defense courses, swimming lessons. Swimming is a really big thing in Iceland. I try to watch my time. We can get to that in the questions if you want to know. But different sources of how I can feel independent and secure in my life in Iceland. Then we go into the cultural competency part, how we see our role as a facilitator in taking these things that we understand, speaking to the systems, to the greater society, and how we need to care for and think of the needs of a diverse population. So, and I'm sharing this here today because I'm hoping that you in Portugal, working with migrants, that you're also mindful of these things. And at our organizations, these are sort of the things that really, really matter to us, and we put into practice every day. As you can see with our survey and whatnot, we try to lead by example. We have no prejudices. We face them, we encounter them, we work with them. Our perspectives matter. Our perspectives matter whether we're looking at the systems that we believe need to better support us, or whether we're looking at the individuals who need to be supported and want to be empowered. And it's really important to us that cultural competency is a tool, and that we promote inclusion through cultural competency. Diversity, we view it as a strength in any society, and it's a key to us evolving and making things better and meeting the needs of people. We cannot do it all. We cannot support within and highlight what others need to address. We realize that. So we work on both things. We try to have programs like this wonderful one with our friends in Portugal, but we also work to in our activism to make other people understand and work with us and with our people. Peer support is one of our main factors. We feel it's really important, and it's through formal chambers. It's through using our social media to inform people, and it's through daily contacts and being accessible to women in any form that they need to contact us. So, and we look at peer support as not helping, but empowering others through the use of collaborative communication. This is something that's so important when we're talking about support. Collaborative communication is the process of communication which every individual matters. And if you don't say that to yourself when you go in this work, if you take on a role where you have some sort of power and you're helping, that's not right. This person matters, and we're working together, and matters for equality. The goal of CC, as I call it, is the connection. People feel that they are heard, they are seen, and they are valued. When communicating like this, you ensure that people believe they're welcome. Not just that they're listened to, but they're welcome. Because when it comes to migrants, there are many hindrances that are not intentional, but they make us believe that we're not really welcome. I, for example, when I moved here the first 4 years, I didn't know I had the right to go to have my own doctor. And I always felt like an outsider. And I was always going to the emergency room or to the night clinic or something like that. I didn't feel a part of it. I can give you 100 examples, but you see little things like that, they matter. Collaboration means informing women about rights, obligations, resources, rules, and how things work. Allow them to provide you with information about about their worries, their experience, and their expectations. This really matters. This really matters that you know about their expectations, what they'd like to do, what they'd like to see. And it's important, again, as I say, to be as accessible as you can be and always to follow up. These are the standards of our peer support. We follow up and we allow people to check us and make sure we do follow up. If we the cultural and a competency, I'm sure many of you who've worked with diversity have seen these, you know, the whole funny me coming from Iceland showing you an iceberg, but this is how it works. This is how it works. You have your surface culture, and that's usually where we have our biases. You know, we think every immigrant who comes in doesn't know something, or, you know, I have to support them in this way. And we talk about food and language, flags, festivals, and things like that. But the truth of the matter is that down below are the things that matter, the things that bind us, or the things that can separate us. And we need to be aware of them and utilize them and be open to them when we are collaborating and communicating and supporting each other. And this is reflected in our behavior. We see certain things, but underneath we know that our attitudes and our values, our concepts of time, definition of community and identity, that they matter and they affect the way we act, the action we take. And us as an organization, these things matter. The definition of the community I belong to, it's diverse. It's diverse on so many levels, and I'm lucky to belong to it. What influences us? And I don't mean us as in my organization, but I mean us as a society. And it's something we need to be aware of, we need to work against, and we need to understand that the women who come to us who are perhaps abused or have been degraded against, that these are the things that are working against them. You see these wonderful pictures, stereotyping, and the way media puts it forth. This really, really matters. It really matters that someone doesn't view women of Asian origins in this manner, so they feel like they can abuse or degrade or discriminate against them. Rumors and false proclamations. And I mentioned this before, an inner desire to save others or avoid others. That these things, they influence us and they influence our work, and they're things that we need to be willing to, when we work with a diverse population, recognize, because within our nature, we do have prejudices, we do meet things, we are influenced by these things, and we need to learn to work against them. This is my Bible. And it's called the Continuum of Cultural Competency. And the idea with this is that we're always working towards moving ourselves and others from red to purple. And we know that in our work, we're going to encounter people who are at different stages, and that we need to promote always moving towards the purple. When we worked with MeToo, it was through, we were in the green, where we were explaining things, letting people know that these are the issues and how can we commit to them, assess the needs, assess what people are working against, recognize them and moving forward. It's important to continually progress forward, as I say, and always be aware if we slide backwards, because it happens. And for me, I mean, I know you can all read this, and you're more than welcome to have the slides after the talk. I think it's really important to recognize the fact that racism and discrimination, it is alive and well within the yellow. Red is scary. Red, people want to hurt, they want to destroy, they want to hold people back. Orange, people do refrain from supporting others, and they do things that work against inclusion and diversity. But in the yellow, we're blind to it. We don't recognize it. We don't talk about it. We put everybody in the same box. you know, that we're not open to having a discussion about the fact that through peer support and community-based work, we may need to approach a certain type of person from a certain background or with certain needs in a different manner. And once we admit that and we move towards the green, then we explore these issues. We're open to them. Like in our survey that I mentioned, we looked to see if there was any populace that had it harder than another, so that when we started offering initiatives, that we would do it in a manner that reflects their needs, their culture. And then, as you say, cultural competence is achieved when we seek advice from diverse groups. We hire culturally, we work in order to bridge society. And this is just something I think that it's really important to have at the crux of your work if you are working with diverse populations in a community-based, peer-based. You can't just think to yourself, I mean well. You have to understand yourself. This is just a little definition about what cultural competency is. It recognizes these things that define us, and understanding the fact that those things that define us, whether they be at the top of our iceberg or at the bottom, that they can either engage us and bring us together, or they can divide us. And it all lays upon our shoulders and how we want to control our perspectives and the way we work with and empower people. I won't go too heavily into this, but it really has to do firstly and foremostly with being able to distinguish between outer characteristics and inner characteristics. And it has to do with understanding that the process of being culturally competent, it's a maturation. It's a process that we go through. I myself was raised in a very white Midwestern town in the United States, and I had a father who was very opposed to cultural diversity. And now I live as an immigrant and within an amazing immigrant population here, where I finally have learned to flourish. And would like to say that I'm cultural competent. At least I try to be. And the objective to becoming cultural competent is to develop positively through that continuum that I just showed you. And here, this is your strongest tool. It's the 5 steps, and it starts with ourselves. And this is a tool that I use when I work with community-based projects, not just with cultures, but with when I face something that's new or foreign to me that I really have to learn to understand. And it's to, number one, and identify and acknowledge cultural differences. It's okay to say that Maria and I were different. We come from different backgrounds, and we have different cultural expectations and experiences and knowledges. That's fine. But then it is to step back and recognize what's about my culture and myself. Not just that I'm distinguished from another one, but what makes me distinct. And then to look and learn and admit my views and where they come from. They come from my background, my understanding, my experience, my lack of knowledge about, I keep using you, Maria, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of your beautiful smile. But identifying who she is and asking, what is it? What does Maria have with dinner at night that I maybe don't have here that I'd like to learn about? And we put that effort into that learning. And then we review how we behave in these situations when we occur something that's different than us. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it something I need to adjust? And then take the cycle again, go back through the steps and learn and see if my view hasn't changed. And this is really important when we encounter, for example, through our peer work, someone who's in a situation where we might have the tendency to say, just walk away. If we don't understand those cultural diversities and the things that they face through their situation that's different than our own, we can't support them and we can't help them. Then we have something called cultural humility. Once we've worked our way through the continuum and we develop this ability to listen to ourselves and to others through our collaborative communication, we have this, again, this self-exploration. It's so critical. We train our brain to look within and ask ourselves questions like, how do I describe my own ethnicity, race, religion, gender, orientation, my values, my own experiences? Or am I just assuming that this person speaks Spanish because she looks Mexican? Am I assuming he is gay because he acts or dresses effeminate? Am I using assumptions to guide my behaviors? And will that stand in the way of me being able to support and empower everyone? And this is something we work with. Those 5 steps, they train our brain to go here. This is really, really important. And once we're able to ask ourselves those tough questions and identify those things and not be afraid to identify them and speak honest about them, then that's when we have this cultural humility, which will guide us to support others. Every time that we ask questions like this, we help to disarm our personal biases. We make a practice of self-reflection, open-minded listening, and posture of humility. With that open-minded listening, if we're working with that collaborative communication I mentioned earlier, then we're hearing what people need and what they want, and they feel welcome and they trust us to tell us, while we are also working on our own biases. If we don't like something we hear, it's not for us to say that. It's for us to work with. We truly then are at our best position ever to serve people, to support them, and to empower them effectively, because that's what matters, that we're effective in what we do in this kind of peer support situations, no matter what their cultural or their background is. And then the most important thing, and something that I really believe and I'm really thankful for in this organization, women that I work with, is that we look at building bridges. Bridges that are built through cultural competency, collaborative communication, and they are what I call TRS, trustworthy, reliable, and supportive. And, we can build bridges like here on the left. It's a beautiful bridge. And I mean, and it does what it's supposed to do, right? You can go back and forth, and it's gotten people over an amazing valley that maybe otherwise would never have succumbed, right? But then if we look to the right, this just says everything. We have a bridge that's populated with all kinds of people going in both directions. You feel comforted by this hand that comes under. And this is what I believe and have tried to do, and we do every day in our organization at Women, and through our actions and the different projects that we work on. And I hope that through this little talk here today, you're able to do the same. And I just want to say, at some point, our perspectives, they change. The importance of understanding your views and attitudes can't be underestimated, as they will determine whether or not you are able to actively participate in a diverse society, whether you're actually able to work with community support and lift others, I guess you should say, how we behave and interact with others. When we are here, we can support and empower anyone. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nichole. Thank you. Now we would open for our audience for questions, comments for a little bit. We have a few minutes for that. We have a good comment. Thanks a lot. It was amazing. Yes.
I guess while I still have the floor, I'll just say, being in the environment I'm in and this organization, it hasn't only been rewarding, it has been fun. Mm-hmm. We have dealt with some pretty difficult things, and I've been brought to tears, and the humanity of being able to honestly and openly work and support and empower others, it is the greatest, most humbling feeling in the world.
Actually, I have a question for you, and I was thinking through your talk, and it's amazing that the difference between the competency and the proficiency. And how do you deal with that? Because we may be cultural competent in some cultures, but then the proficiency, we may be aware of the differences from other cultures, but from awareness to competency, how do you deal with the multicultural challenges that we all have to face and be competent in all of them?
Definitely flexibility is a really, really, it's a needed, what do you want to say? I'm saying hæfni in Icelandic. You guys get that, right? Skill. It's a skill. It's not a luxury. It's a skill that you need to have, and you need to be able to fluctuate back and forth, because especially when we're talking about systems and especially when you get down to, you know, very, very minority groups who are very isolated. It's then really difficult to you know, to identify and to understand that maybe you're not culturally competent there. There's something that you're missing or someone that is excluded. It's being able to reverse back and ask yourself, am I being proficient? Am I open enough so someone can tell me I'm not proficient enough? That's probably right there the key to it. And through using things like collaborative communication and always trying to have our finger on the pulse, you know, saying, wait a minute, there are, you know, things in the air, things going on right now, COVID, and we're not hearing chatter. What can we do to get the information we need to guarantee that we are proficient?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. There's another question here from our one participant that asks, what are the main nationalities in the Icelandic context? Are there family groups?
Family groups, what do you mean family groups?
Colega, o que é que significam? Existem grupos familiares? Quer explicar um pouco mais? Women with children.
Oh, yeah. And if I go back in the slides, there's a large diversity, huge amounts of. I would say the main source of women who look to us are women with children. Yes. And then when it comes to the distinctions of marital status, that's a whole nother thing. But women with children are the majority. Iceland is a very family-oriented country, and a reason, you know, a lot of people migrate here. That has that Nordic, what do you want to say, Nordic welfare system, where, you know, school and healthcare are predominantly designed around families and children.
So the majority of the people, the women you provide the support for are women with children.
Yeah, the majority are women with children.
Okay, right. Are there other questions? I would like to pose another one, and because we are here also working with women in going beyond the support group, and how could women also support beyond the support group, could be partners in informing the system?
Yeah.
How do you envision that?
Yeah, this is something that we've actually worked really hard to get our foot in the door and at the table. We've really, through our activism, we, for example, we watch what's happening in the political sector, and we send in referrals when there's legislation being put forward, whether it be at a local level or a national level, to remind people of foreigners and women of foreign origin and their needs, and put them in the context of whatever's being done, especially when it comes to you know, those earmarks that we learned through MeToo need to be better. We have been invited through our lobbying. I mean, this organization and the women who come before me, I can't even stop to let you know the work that they've put forward. To we sit in panels. We work to get, if there's something called the welfare watch. We have a seat there, so our voice is included. So that's something that we really worked at regarding that. And then outside, it's also through the projects we do. We let people know. For example, with the status survey, I guess what I should say is right now we just ran 4 courses of information about tax, financial literacy, benefits programs, things regarding the labor market, that the system isn't taken care of. You saw with our survey, women said it by a majority, this is something they needed. So we went out and we got the grants and we ran the courses. And then what we're going to do now is send a report that says, this many people, over 200 people took these courses to find out better, to let people know what needs to be done. So that's a part of it. Activism is always on the side. We write articles and papers for people to acknowledge and recognize. And we just don't shy away from letting people know, to amplify the voices of the women who look to us.
I was reading the other day about also how women could deal with microaggression. It was a curious designation, but it's quite interesting because it does happen. This is something in the middle of the continuum where the aggression is not open, explicit, but is always there somehow. Yeah. How do they work on
women of foreign origin experience this a lot. In Icelandic we call it dulturfordóma. It's it's really tough because when you put it into a cultural aspect, it's not within the nature or the upbringing of a lot of people to address this. And for us, it's to work with it. It's just to advocate, let people know. One thing that's really wonderful about our position here is there's a really strong feminist movement. And we just slide right in with them and work with them to be, let our voices amplify with theirs. Because alone, I don't know that everyone would stand up and say, I don't like it when someone says this. Language bias is probably the place where we get the very most microaggression. I still get it. I speak fluent Icelandic and I still get my little nicks and tubs about I don't say things right, I don't write things right, comments about the position I'm in, whether I really should be in it because of my language skills. This is a really big that we deal with.
And it's and that is transversal to all socio-economical status.
Yeah. I mean, here you see, I'm the what am I? I'm the head of a government agency, and I'm still getting it. When I sat in Parliament, the first message I got when I sat in the seat on Parliament was, "Great, Nichole Mosty, we have to put text on the Parliament now because there's the live feed." Something they never had to do before because they didn't have a woman of foreign origin who was speaking on live TV. I would say that's not very microaggressive, but it was written in the sense. So yeah, so it's indicative of social status. Yeah.
Okay. There's a comment here also. Thank you very much for your inspiration and informative webinar. We look forward for more webinars in the future.
Me too, because I get to watch the next one.
Okay. Yes, it was quite interesting. Abria o espaço para quem queira fazer mais algum comentário, alguma questão que queiram colocar, que não ficasse bem esclarecida, de como aplicar esta ideia do Continuum e como aplicar esta ideia de cultural awareness aos contextos aqui em Portugal. Uma pergunta da Janine mais acima. Janine, onde é que você está? Obrigada. Que tipos de, what kinds of activities do you organize with the women that bring to them a higher sense of empowerment and of support?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I didn't go into all of the activities. So we do things that have to do with having courses where we explain rights and obligations. So so we do empowerment through information. That's a really big thing. We do specific peer support things where we provide people with information and we support them to get the right assistance that they need, whether it be legal assistance or through the systems or whatnot. We do have self-defense courses that we've had, and we will be having more of them. We also have, it's a wonderful, it's sort of a cultural, we call it the Women's Story Circle, where we bring women together to network. You know the importance of networking, right? It's really important. They can network, they can speak with each other, and they have now outreach sources. With the courses, we also have meetings where we call together, we get voices. After MeToo, one of the most important thing to do was we got a meeting, we had a collective, and we let women put forth initiatives that they wanted to see done. And then we go out and we do our work to get them empowered. But those are probably the main things, through providing courses, peer support, and connecting women with the things they directly need to feel like they have their feet underneath them and their voice right here where they need it, and networking.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you for this sentence, that to have the voice where they need to have the voice. So it's very important to address those questions.
Because we all have a voice, and sometimes, especially when you find yourself isolated, you might just talk over here and you're still in your bubble and nothing's happening. So what we do is we try to, put that voice here.
Yes. Another comment from one of our former students, saying that is very clear and enriching. In relation, a comment by Vanessa, in relation to Icelandic language, what are the instruments and activities that you may offer? That hence language is a factor of discrimination and presents itself as a difficulty for integration and for inclusion.
Right. Well, this is, years ago we had Icelandic courses which were funded from a certain group, and in all honesty, it's something that we, for a long while, we haven't done anything with language because we felt like it's not necessarily something we can do. We can facilitate it, we can encourage people, but now, you see the demands are high. We see that there is something that we have to do. And at this point, the main thing we do is we use through our activism. I mean, I'm going to sit next week with a panel that's reviewing Icelandic as a second language with a language provider and what they can do. We're allowed to criticize and how they can open up more and provide more. But us as an organization that's run by women of foreign origin, we don't really see it as something we could do competently. I don't feel that, I could go out and teach someone Icelandic. I could do everything to encourage them and support them. And, if we could provide funding for people to take courses, then that's what we would do. But, another thing with the courses, we just ran, I forgot to say, a wonderful, I'm sorry, out from the Icelandic, but with the language, we do everything we can to get it in a better thing. We act, and activism is our strongest tool there, to let people know that they need to do it. It needs to be affordable, it needs to be accessible, and it needs to be good. One thing I forgot to say with empowerment is that we just had a wonderful closed group where we were working on with a psychologist who went into a sort of a 10 session therapy with women who were isolated, who were dealing with the after effects of abuse and whatnot, where they had a support group that was led by a psychologist. And that's something we want to do a lot more of. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of women don't have access to psychological assistance. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. With the things that they're dealing with.
Yes.
Definitely. Anxiety and whatnot.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Ok. So, haverá mais alguma questão ou comentário que ainda gostassem de apresentar? There's another thing. are there, do you have any partnerships with universities or school supports for the families with children? The families with children that are small children, and how does that happen in the case of families who are in refugee status that do not have any access of the language of the country?
Well, when it comes to people who have gotten refugee status, they are provided language courses by the government. There's a whole, in Iceland, there's an immigrant and an immigrant and an immigrant. But regarding refugees, and the agency that I run right now is working to collaborate so that all people who receive refugee status, they get language courses, they get social capacity and instruction in how to integrate and how Icelandic society works. So those most vulnerable, they do get these types of, but if Maria were to move to Iceland tomorrow, you're on your own for Icelandic. Regarding children, we don't do much work with children at all. We don't, we'll have every once in a while activities where mothers can bring their children, but we're not. Iceland is a country that has this Nordic welfare society, and there are entities that work with families with children. We do our best to get families in need and with children to those entities who do work best and are professional there. Because we are more of a peer support. We're a peer organization, so we work with our peers. And I, as a mother and as a teacher, I ran an early and a childhood center for years. That's my background. I can provide counseling or consultation or advice, but in a role to do something genuine for them, there are entities that do provide very good services for families with children in need.
Right. Ok. Se houver ainda uma última questão ou comentário, just the last question or comment.
Okay.
I don't think there's more here. Nichole, thank you so much for the session today. It was inspiring. It gave us ideas for enhancing here our activities with our network of women in terms of the peer network and this idea of the cultural competence, and to ask them how do we go from here on that matter. So it was inspiring and was important for us too. It was a learning experience. We thank you very much. We thank our audience too. Thank you. I'm not going to switch to Portuguese. Agradecemos também muito a presença aqui dos nossos colegas, parceiros que estiveram aqui conosco. Parece que há aqui uma nova mensagem. Somebody says it was an excellent initiative and it was a good moment for reflection and sharing. So thank you, Aurelindo. And tomorrow is a holiday here. So para amanhã todos tenham bom feriado neste tempo mais complexo e difícil. Nichole, again, we do thank you so much for this session today, and hope to see you in the very next future. Muito obrigada a todos, bom resto de tarde, bom trabalho para todos. Muito obrigada.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. I have to admit, I was a little shy coming after the other Nichole.
You don't need to.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Looking forward to seeing you someday in Portugal.
I hope to see you too. Bye. Bye now. Thank you.
professora, só para avisar que, pronto, obviamente já estamos fora do live.
Podemos parar a gravação, João, desculpa.